Good afternoon, Washington, D.C. Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. This is Tony Browder welcoming you to episode 5 of From the Browder File. We come to you every Wednesday from 5 until 6 p.m. on WPFW 89.3 FM. And I'm your host, Tony Browder, bringing you exciting guests who will often discuss history, antiquity, and more importantly, will provide you with news that you can use. Today's going to be a very special day. I've got a guest, a brother who I've known for, well over 30 years. He met him in Washington, D.C., but he's been gone from the D.C. area for over 2 decades and will be coming back this weekend, coming back this Saturday. The great Wayne Chandler will grace the Washington, D.C. community with a special lecture, a special presentation entitled Ancient Future and Beyond, a conversation with Wayne Chandler and our good friend Paul Coates, who we had on last week. And we'll be engaged in stimulating conversation about African history, but also about how we prepare ourselves for the history that is headed our way. Wayne would do a dynamic presentation. For those who are familiar with the works of this brother, Wayne Chandler, you should know him as a anthrophotojournalist, specializes in collecting archival pictures, documenting the African presence in Mexico, the African presence in Asia, the African presence in India, and various parts of the world. So really looking forward to Wayne jumping on the line and joining us in a few minutes. I do expect him to call in shortly so that we can begin this conversation. And welcoming him to Washington, D.C. and sharing a ton of information with us. Let me just give you a little background about Wayne while we're waiting for him to join us. Wayne, as I said, is an anthrophotojournalist. He specializes in ancient Asian civilization, philosophy, and culture. He's a member of a a national organization called Afri-Asia, which is dedicated to the historical study of the impact and unition of African and Asian world populations. Wayne has appeared in numerous television and radio programs. He's published widely in his area of expertise, and he's traveled extensively throughout the United States and abroad. For those of you who are familiar with the works of Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, you should know that Wayne was a regular contributor to that prestigious journal. He wrote a number of articles between 1985 and 1995. He's also done extensive lectures dealing not only with history, but also metaphysics, also ancient Asian, Chinese, and Indian practices of yoga and holistic healing. But more specifically, Wayne is probably best known for his work, Ancient Future, the teachings and prophetic wisdom of the 7 Hermetic laws of ancient Egypt. This was a book that Wayne wrote 25 years ago. It was published by Black Classic Press, Paul Coates with Black Classic Press. And it's going to be the focal point of the discussion that Wayne is going to have on this Saturday. So I want to share with you, prior to Wayne coming on, I want to share with you a couple of quotes, notable quotes from Ancient Future that frame Wayne's knowledge of ancient history, history in the Indus Valley, history in the Nile Valley, history of Mexico, ancient Mesoamerican culture, and show you how he frames all of this knowledge and puts it into a context that extends our understanding of what we thought we know and how that shapes the world that is coming towards us. So let's see here. Here's this wonderful quote that is in the introduction to Ancient Future. Wayne says, along the timeline of human life, we have periods of light characterized by great spiritual and technological achievement, considered by many to be golden ages. Just as prominent on the timelines are periods of the disintegration of civilization brought about by dissension, greed, war, and malice. These are frequently known as the Dark Ages. Although we live forward, we are forever looking backwards. And from this chronic contradiction, a hero arises, a model of the past bound to the present to create the future. Wayne's publication, Ancient Future, comprehensively examines the Hermetic principles of Jehudi, creating a link between antiquity and the future. Winston Churchill was perhaps the most famous to state this truism, that the further we look back, the further forward we're able to see into the future. So that's why the past is so important to me and people like me. That's why we spend our time and have dedicated our lives to studying the past for the express purpose of understanding how we got where we are and what the future holds for us based on an examination of how things have unfolded in the past. And Wayne is probably one of the best persons I know who's duly qualified to give us a view into the future, who can gaze into this historical crystal ball and predict with a great degree of accuracy what is headed our way based on the things that human beings have done, and also what human beings have done to each other, in the sense of creating things that have brought people together and also creating confusion, which has separated and divided people. And in the midst of humans' activities, we also have to consider what humans have done to the environment, what we've done to the air, to the water, to the food, and how that impacts nature and the role that nature must play in order to balance itself. You know, for every action, they say there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so the things that we've done to our environment will come back to haunt us. And it appears that we have not been good stewards of this planet, and that the environment has been negatively impacted by the fossil fuels that are spewed into the air every single day. We haven't been taking care of our water supply. And as a consequence, the things that we've done to this planet have changed our relationship to the planet. And we've been seeing this with intense hurricanes and heat waves and droughts. As a matter of fact, I just read in the paper this week that this past November was the warmest November in DC history. I also believe that the weather reports indicated that this was the driest November since they've been keeping records. So obviously, things that people have been doing to our environment is having a direct impact on our environment. And unless we change things dramatically, things will only get worse. They'll not only get worse for us, they'll be worse for our children, our grandchildren, and future generations. So it means that we've got to begin to change the way we've been handling things. We've got to do things smarter. We got to do things differently. We have to begin to cultivate a more loving relationship with this environment, with Mother Earth, if we intend to continue living here for multiple generations. And in order to do that, it's going to take a dramatic shift in our consciousness, because we cannot continue doing the things that we have been doing for the past 100 years or so and expect different reactions. That is the clinical definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting different results. So the time is right. The time is nigh for us to begin to reconsider how we can do things better. And in order to do things better, we have to look at what we've done thus far to get us to this point. And that's where history comes in. That's where being able to do a critical analysis of the successes that we've made in the past and the failures that we've made in the past, which have led us to where we are right now. And unless we make some changes, then our future is not going to be very bright. So now is the time to be alert. Now is the time to be responsible. Now is the time to step up and make a commitment to living our lives better. And living our lives better means not just living our lives for ourselves, for our individual selves, but understanding how everything that we do in our life impacts the lives of everybody around us. People that we know, people that we don't know, our friends, our family members. Everything that we do has an impact. And once you understand how interconnected we are as people, as human beings, then we can assume greater responsibility for changing our thoughts, changing our speech, changing our actions, which set in motion changes that will trickle down and impact future generations. That's the cause and effect relationship that exists between all of us. So I'm talking, and I'm waiting for Wayne to come on the line and join me. I'm not quite sure what's happening. I was talking with him shortly before I came on air to make sure he had all the information. And obviously, it looks like he has not received the Zoom link. So bear with me, brothers and sisters. I'm going to resend this Zoom to Wayne Chandler again and extend another invitation for him to jump on board and join us so that we can um, have the stimulating conversation that I promised you so much. So bear with me for 5 seconds. And I'm going to resend this text to Wayne, and hopefully he would join us. If not, then I'll fall back on Plan B, right? And Plan B is I'll talk about something else that is near and dear to my heart, and hopefully will interest you. Okay, here we go. Let's try it one more time. Okay, so while we're still waiting for Wayne to join us, um, let me talk about some other shows that we have coming up this month on the Browder File. Um, Next week on the 11th, we're going to have a guest that I had the pleasure of interviewing when I was hosting for Nkechi Taifa. That guest will be Paul Abina, a good friend of mine who lives in the UK. Paul Abina is the creator of the timeline that we've been using for quite some time to illustrate American history, world history, Nile Valley history and culture. I've been working with Paul to develop a new timeline, a timeline that is specifically timed or prepared for U.S. history, American history. In the previous timelines, we had a lot of information about British history and the histories of other cultures. But we're going to do one that is specifically tuned to U.S. history and Nile Valley history, showing more of the interconnections. That timeline will be available by the end of this month. But Paul is going to be my guest, and he's going to talk about concepts that inspired him to create this timeline. He shared with me, how interesting it was to find out that very few people, maybe not very few people, but quite a number of people aren't really familiar with the concepts of BC and AD. These are dates in the calendar that most of us take for granted, but there are a considerable number of people who don't understand that this represents a decision on the part of people who manipulated time to recalibrate time based on the birth of Jesus the Christ. That's what BC means, before Christ's birth. And then the time after the birth of Jesus the Christ is referred to as AD, or in the year of our Lord. And so we've oriented ourselves based on the calendar that we used in the Western Hemisphere, the Gregorian calendar, which was introduced by Pope Gregory. This calendar orients us to a Christian perspective of life. So everything that happened before the birth of Jesus Christ is referred to as BC. And yes, Paul Coates, you can join me if you like. I think you have the same web ID or Zoom ID, so feel free to jump on if you're able to. And AD is the time after the birth of Christ. So our whole perspective of reality has been determined by members of the Roman Catholic Church. And there is a history, a profound history of humankind that preceded the birth of Christ, that preceded the creation of the Roman Catholic Church. And that information, much of that information has been skewed, has been omitted from the understanding of human history or the teaching of human history, or it's presented in such a way that we don't understand its full impact. So Paul is going to talk about the timeline and why time is so important. He's going to talk about how we perceive time based on the two hemispheres of the brain, based on the right hemisphere, which is our feminine intuitive faculty, which connects us to spirit, sound, and art, and our creative being, and then the left hemisphere, which is masculine, which is analytical, which counts and measures. And these two hemispheres are the way in which we determine our reality. But these two hemispheres of the brain are linked by a bundle of nerves referred to as the corpus callosum. And they're responsible for transferring information between these two hemispheres, and how well they transfer information and how quickly they transfer information really determines a human capacity to understand information and to interpret that which we believe that we understand. And because of the fact most of what we think we understand has been shaped by people that we don't know, our understanding has been limited by indoctrination. And so, um, huh. and so, let me make a request. If my daughter Atlantis is listening, could you come to my assistance, please? Calling Atlantis Browder. Can you come to my assistance, please? I need you to help me for a moment. Thank you, and I know you're on your way. So Paul is going to come next week on the 11th to talk about the timeline and how we perceive time. And then I'm going to ask him to place all this information into historical and scientific context with regards to our concept of time is based on celestial objects, the sun, the moon, and the stars. And during this time of year, there are specific celestial phenomena that really shape this holiday season and shape our relationship with the universe, our relationship with the cosmos. And that particular celestial event is known as the winter solstice. And the relationship between human beings and celestial events is critically important to how we come to know ourselves, how we think and how we function, and how we interact with others. And so it's no mystery that many of the most important holy days, high religious holy days, are associated with celestial phenomena. So we're going to talk about that with regards to the upcoming winter solstice. And let's see here. We're going to talk about that with regards to the upcoming winter solstice on the 11th. And then we're going to come back on the 18th with another guest who's going to expand on that understanding. And we're going to have a special guest, Baba Derek Jackson, who is not only a pastor, but he is a thought leader who helps to give us a better understanding of religious thought and ideas and how they have been interpreted and misinterpreted. I see Paul Coates has joined us online. Paul, I want to invite you to unmute yourself and come on. And as we did last week, come on with just your audio and not your video, so we'll get a stronger feed. Oh, and here is Wayne Chandler now. All right, so we got it. Everything is coming together. Boy, if I had hair, it'd be gone by now. But everything works out with patience. So Wayne Chandler is coming in. I want to invite you to the studio. I want to invite you to the airways, Wayne. So, brother, please unmute yourself. And I've been talking you up. So pleased to have you on, to have you join us. So pleased to welcome you to DC. Still waiting for you to unmute yourself. And I'm going to just jump right in and invite you to talk about your work, Ancient Future. And then we'll build on that. So, Brother Wayne, welcome to the Browder File, brother. It's good to hear you, and I look forward to seeing you on this coming Saturday, brother. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, my brother. It was quite the journey, man, just to get on this program, man.
Well, you're here, and that's all that counts. I'm glad to see you. You're looking well, and it's been ages, man, since I've seen you, and since you graced our presence here in DC. So we're looking forward to this homecoming on Saturday.
I'm looking forward to it as well, man. It's been a very long time. As we were speaking earlier, it's been over 20 years, man, since I've spoken in DC, and that's a good amount of time,
Yeah,
based on
man.
what it is that I do and what the community is receptive to.
Well, why don't we just jump in and tell our audience what it is you do and what aspects of the work that you do that people here in DC and people around the country and around the world have been responsive to.
Yeah, I wear a lot of hats. A lot of people are going to remember or recognize me from the work that I did with Ivan Van Sertima, which I worked with that brother for 10 years. And then my partner in crime, Renoko, we did a lot of things together, kind of branching off of that experience with Ivan, and opened up a lot of doors for both of us. And I'm also I worked with this brother. He was a jazz pianist out of New York, probably one of the last great jazz pianists, a brother by the name of Randy Weston.
Randy Weston, absolutely.
And I've worked with him for about a little over 20 years, man, doing
Hmm.
various projects. And the last project we did was a CD called the Nubian Suite, which was released, I believe it was 2017, because
Hmm.
I think he crossed over in 2018.
Okay. If I'm not mistaken, Wayne, I believe that you and Randy were in DC either at the Kennedy Center or the Smithsonian.
We did the Smithsonian
Smithsonian.
because he was inducted into the Smithsonian Jazz Hall of Fame.
All right. So when did Randy perform and you read pieces
Right.
from
Yep.
that CD? So tell us tell us something about that experience, man. What was it like working with Randy, and what was some of the history that you all were imparting to jazz lovers and history lovers?
Randy, man, was a very special and incredibly unique human being. And his focus was the fusion of our history with the music. And so one day I was out in California doing some presentations, and I got this call from him, and he had called Paul Coates, my publisher,
Okay.
to get my numbers. And he said, "Man, I've got these compositions." He said, "But they don't have words. I need them to have words. I need you to give them words." And I was shocked. And so I said, "Well," I said, send me the compositions, and I'll listen to them and see what I can intuit and what comes up." And that's how it all began, man. And it was an incredible experience. It was,
So you said the CD was called Nubian Suite,
yeah. I think he changed it at the last second to the African Nubian Suite.
the African Nubian Suite. So can you share with our listeners some of the concepts that you wrote? So I guess some of the lyrics or themes that you inspirited from listening to the music. What did the ancestors channel through you, man?
Probably all of them had their own flavor. We got into the African presence in ancient China, did something around that. And then probably the most outstanding, at least to me, and I believe to Randy and Fatu as well, his wife, the most outstanding piece was called the African Cookbook.
Hmm.
And when he asked me to do a piece on the African Cookbook, and this is just before we did the Smithsonian, and literally he asked me to put something together the day before we were to do the Smithsonian. And that man, that was quite the journey because I was up all night long. Literally, I was up all night putting this piece together, channeling this information. And upon finishing it, I finished it. We were starting the program at 5 p.m. I was in my hotel, which was centered downtown, and I finished at 10 minutes to 5.
Hmm.
I had to jump in the car and I actually went down two one-way streets during rush hour to get there, to get to the place, man.
All right,
But
brother. That's dedication.
I walked in right at 5 o'clock when they were doing the introductions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
But yeah, that piece, because I asked him, I said, well, the African cookbook, I said, what's the concept? What is that theme? And he said, well, it's about our journey from the beginning of time up to now. And I
So it
said,
wasn't literally about food. It was about black folk just
it was
doing
about
what
our
they do.
journey. It was
Yeah.
about our journey
Okay.
from the very beginning of our history up to where we are currently.
Well, look, man, I want you to respond to this quote from your introduction to Ancient Future. It's a quote that I found quite captivating. You were referencing A.L. Basham, who wrote that the peasant in Egypt or Iraq had no knowledge of their forefathers, but the people of the Indus Valley were fully conscious of their antiquity, which stretched back to the 7th century BC. So, with that simple statement, you're saying that the Africans living in the Indus Valley had never lost their connection to their ancestral history, which had been
Right.
severed in Egypt and in Iraq and other places where Africans had lived. That chain was broken, but there was historical continuity in the Indus Valley. Can you kind of describe that continuity and what it looked like and what it manifested?
Yeah, it allowed their spiritual traditions were ongoing. And I believe that because that tradition, which was their science of how to operate, in the real world, created a level of not only spiritual continuity, but overall holistic continuity that fed into their ability to be these amazing architects, city planners. And a lot of what they were able to accomplish was far beyond what was going on in the rest of the world. And it was because that lineage had never, ever been broken. And they were able to build on that consistently.
All right. It's 5:30. You're listening to Wayne Chandler. I'm Tony Browder, host of the Browder File. We're here on 89.3 WPFW. So Wayne, getting back to that comment, getting back to that thought, because I really want to wrap my mind around it, and I want our listeners, our audience, to really understand what you're saying here. So these were African people who had migrated to the Indus Valley, who had maintained this historical continuity, spiritual continuity, cultural continuity that was consistent until the Aryan invasion.
Exactly.
All right, so give us some time frames and just paint a picture for us, brother, if you will, of what life was like before and after.
This is the thing. The whole idea of the timelines that we use have been very corrupted. So
Okay.
we really, as you know, and we really don't know in looking through this looking glass exactly what the correct time frame was. We know that in the Indus Valley, there have been mounds that have been built on top of mounds, which reflect civilizations, that occupied various geographical, areas. And when one area, came to closure, another area was built on top of that. And it just created this ongoing level of perpetual consciousness that allowed them to be the creators, manifestors, builders, architects that they became uh, to become, that they became over, I guess, in their overall history, which could be anywhere between 10,000 years or more. You know, I mean, that's what we're really
Mm-hmm.
looking at. When we look at African history, we have to look at the things that have been really swept under the rug and done so in ways that um, negates a lot of what it is we have accomplished. And for example, if I tell people that they have found in Gabon a nuclear power station that dates itself back to 2.5 million years ago, people would think me to be crazy.
All right,
But
Wayne. Wait, stop, because that does sound crazy. All right. Explain
right,
yourself, brother. Explain
exactly.
yourself.
But this is the thing. You can go and Google that and it will come up. The first scientific magazine that did research on it and published the article on it was Scientific American.
Hmm. When was this
And that was
published?
in 1970.
Hmm. Okay.
In 1970, they published an entire article on this find. Now, this is one of the greatest things that would completely shift the whole perspective of African civilization and what we have brought to the table with respect to just global civilization.
Yeah. Now, I understand how important it is to uncover information that's been hidden and erased and how it shifts our consciousness. So the powers that be have a vested interest in making sure that certain information never makes it to the light of day, which makes your work so important. The work that you did, the work that Renoko did, the work that Ivan Van Sertima did. So, tell me, man, what is it like to be in this fight, to dig up knowledge of the past that you find to be valid and attempt to present this information to a public who's not really prepared to receive it? How do you deal with that, man? How do you reconcile this apparent challenge or contradiction?
It's That's a great question. I mean, because all you can do is continue the battle and be very, very flexible. You have to be very fluid as fluidity relates to the changing of the times that we're moving through. Because right now, we have profound cosmological influences that are coming onto the planet that are completely and totally shifting the entire planet from the physical into the spiritual. And in between those two categories, you're looking at mental emotional transformation that's also taking place. You're looking at political transformations and upheavals. You're looking at the planet itself in terms of its geography shifting and changing, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of the things that I talk about in ancient future are now coming to pass. You
Give me
know,
some examples, Wayne. Give me some
uh,
examples of what you wrote 25 years ago in Ancient Future that you see materializing in 2024, 2025.
yeah, a lot of the movement, which based on, the Kemetic uh, design, cosmological design, we're now moving into this place that begins the new age of, as they call it, the age of Aquarius.
Mhm.
But in that, it comes to the ending of a 25,920 year cycle referred to as the Great Year.
Sure, sure.
And so as we move into this great year, we have to become cognizant of the changes that are upon us because you can't go into this new vibrational frequency, step into this clean frequency with dirty shoes.
Okay. All
So
right.
a lot of changes are upon us that are going to be all about preparation for us, mind, body, and spirit, to prepare us to get us ready to move into this new frontier that is going to be unprecedented.
Okay, well, before I ask you to give us some highlights of some of the changes that we have to make mentally, physically, and spiritually, I just want to share with you a couple of texts that have come my way. Paul Coates just sent me a text and co-signed what you just said about the article in Scientific American. So he's found that article that you just referenced. And our good friend, our brother, Senghor Bae, said to send you greetings and that he looks forward to seeing his fellow Scorpio brother this coming Saturday. So at your presentation Saturday, brother, you're going to talk about a shift that is coming, a dramatic shift that is coming. So, how can the average person best prepare themselves physically, mentally, and spiritually for these shifts? And what do you work on first? Do you work on the physical first, or the mental first, or the emotional first, or the spiritual first? How do we don't have a handbook on how to deal with this. So what would you advise us to do in order to prepare ourselves for what you see is coming?
Yeah, that's a great question. Everything begins on the inside and moves outwardly, So having our spiritual force rooted, in ways that lends itself to the practical, on a daily basis, is where we want to begin. And when we go back and we look at our ancestral traditions, that's how they rocked and rolled.
All right, so give me an example of something that I can do starting tomorrow that will help get me in alignment for this future that is headed my way.
Oh yeah. So, and these are things we're going to talk about. And people are going on Saturday, everybody is going to come to a different awareness about who and what they are. And
Okay.
when they leave that place, they're going to be ready either to move forward or completely just go somewhere and put their heads in the dirt.
So that place where you're going to be Saturday is the Thurgood Marshall Center. We'll give more details about that. But I want to come back to my question, brother. Tell me something simple that
It
I
all
can do starting
begins, the
tomorrow.
breath is the most empowering tool that we have, that we can walk with, that we carry with us consistently.
Okay.
How to activate specific channels or meridians in the human body to get the best out of the life that we want to live begins actually with conscious breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you apply what's called Kachari Mudra to conscious breathing, then you begin to alter your reality and you begin to step into that place as the manifester that you were designed to be.
All right. Kachari Muntra, what is that?
Kachari Mudra is tongue connection.
Tongue connection.
So across the roof of the mouth, there's a ridge. This ridge has three definitive points that takes energy and moves specific life force energy into these different areas. Now, this happens when you take the tip of your tongue and you connect to one of these 3 points. It
Okay.
automatically opens up these conduits in the human body. And once those conduits have been activated, then you're moving in synchronicity with the earth
Okay.
plane, because on the earth, you have its own system of meridians.
Mm-hmm.
They call them grid lines. The civilizations and all African civilizations and deep antiquity were all constructed on the vortexes of the intersection of these grid lines.
All right. So you getting
Once you become active and your grid lines become activated, you automatically integrate with the energy that's now moving through the planet.
all right. So let me just give some context with what you just shared with us, because that information, it means a lot to me, but to the average person, they may not really understand or appreciate what you just shared. You are a historian, Wayne. You are a anthrophotojournalist. You also have certifications in yoga and qigong and other aspects of Chinese and Asian healing techniques. So you kind of know what you're talking about when you are making reference to the breath and meridian lines, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So what does activating yeah, I just saw somebody, Laverne just texted in. She said, you lost her, man. So can you simplify what you just shared? Because this is important information, right? I understand how important it is because I have some familiarity with this subject matter, but there are folk who are just hearing this for the first time. Can you break this down in such a fashion that people can have an aha moment and
Yeah,
really connect with what you're saying?
sure. We're put together, we are a representation of the environment around us. Many of us that have been biblical scholars know that with respect to the formation of just the human entity being brought and born from the earth. So when it says that we reflect, those same systems in the earth, being born of the earth, you know, it's not just the dirt that they're speaking of. They're talking about just the entire global composition and design that went into the formation of this planet. We reflect that same type of design, but it's our responsibility to look into who and what we are and how we're
Mm,
put together. And many of us, because we operate so consistently in survival mode, we live a very distracted life.
sure,
And in
sure.
that level of continuous, perpetual distraction, we don't have the time to really look at ourselves properly and see how we work, let
Hmm.
alone look at the planet and see how it works. All of this is coming to a head now. All of this is coming to a head. And we're going to be forced to look at our environment through a different lens and to deal with our everyday reality in a completely and totally different format. Because I tell you, 2025 starts a new show,
Mm.
and we got to be prepared for that show.
Well, I look forward to the show, man. And as I think about what is coming, I reflect on various experiences that I've had along the way. And I recall a conversation with Richard King, who I think you knew. Richard King, the
Oh yeah,
psychiatrist out in California.
yeah.
And Richard kind of blew my mind when he said that we as human beings are made of stardust. We're made of the stuff that exists within the cosmos, right? We contain within our bodies elements from the Big Bang. And I thought that was a profoundly heavy thing to lay on a brother. But then I hear Neil deGrasse Tyson say the exact same thing. And I'm hearing respected theologians and scientists and historians now co-sign things that I've heard you and Dr. Welsing and Renoko and Van Sertima and others say 20, 30 years ago. So it seems as though a segment of society is just now beginning to catch up with the things that you and other forward-thinking scholars were talking about decades ago. So it's about time for people to reconcile what we talked about then with what's happening right now, right? And I assume Ancient Future lays that out and gives us a blueprint as to how we can align ourselves with what is coming so that we can manifest the best within us as things shift so we don't get swept under the rug. Am I on the right course?
No question, no question. What one of the biggest things, and this is probably the biggest game that has been perpetrated on us as a people, and not even just speaking to us in terms of our specific community, but just humanity as a whole. We've been thrown into this three-dimensional construct. And so we operate out of 3D. And
Mm-hmm.
3D is very dense. It's a very dense vibrational frequency. And it's very hard to make things move through and manifest out of that construct. But we do it all the time. We attempt it all the time. The thing that has been kept from us is that we are not three-dimensional entities.
Mm-hmm.
We are naturally designed in a 4D construct.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about getting back to that because that's where our superpower is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, those same comments were echoed in the book The Seed of the Soul by Gary Zukav, who says that we're socialized to think and function as five sensory beings when in fact we are multi-sensory beings.
Exactly.
And when we cultivate these multiple senses that extend beyond our five, we tap into these universal creative forces that have always been around us. So,
Yep.
so look, man, we only have about 5 minutes left with you, but I want you to briefly touch on a core principle in Ancient Future where you make reference to the seven principles of Jehuti and how they manifest themselves in our lives. So can you touch on those seven principles very briefly?
Yeah, the principles, they all pretty much speak to the formation of our reality as it connects with us in terms of frequency on the daily. And those principles were rhythm, which is largely what I'll be speaking on Saturday, because rhythm deals with as the pendulum swings in one direction to a certain degree, it swings in the opposite direction, to that opposite degree.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Another principle is the principle of gender. You know, how does masculine and feminine energy manifest in our daily realities? Another principle was the principle of correspondence, which deals with as above, so below. If you can identify a specific idea, concept, that operates within the cosmological framework, you can find that exact expression or design in the microcosmic expression as well. You
Mm-hmm.
know, as above, so below. Um, Also, the principle of the all. The principle of the all deals with the divine. You know, what brought all of this into creation and how did it manifest? Through what divine intelligence did it move through to find the level of expression and just variety, unlimited variety that we experience on the daily? You
Mm-hmm.
know, so the all is another. Um, and then some of the others. What are then you have or did I how many have we done?
I lost track, brother. I lost track. But you're gonna lay this out on Saturday. And well, let me just do this to clarify these principles. These 7 principles that you lay out in Ancient Future have been attributed to Jehuti, right? And Jehuti is the ancient Kemetic, ancient Nile Valley personality responsible for bringing to mankind, bringing to humanity the means by which we can live our lives um, as conscious beings in order to manifest heaven on earth. Is that an oversimplification of what Yehudi represents?
No, not at all. You know, it's understanding or really developing and understanding. You know, for example, one of the principles, and I didn't talk about this one, is vibration. You know, and everything vibrates.
Right.
Everything, the universe speaks frequency. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so coming to the awareness, the knowing of vibrational force and how it impacts us, you can develop your own specific vibrational skills to begin to shift and change the environmental design that you operate in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so vibration, especially right now, is one of the most empowered, oriented principles that we can use on the daily.
Yeah, well, we certainly need to shift that vibration because as a result of last month's presidential election, people have been unusually depressed and uncertain as to what life will look like come January the 20th. And we need some direction. We need some insight. We need something to guide us and empower us because, I have to be honest, the things that we have been relying on have not been working. And it's time to begin to reach back into our historical bag and find things that have worked for older civilizations, older cultures, and apply those things to the present moment, tweak them as necessary, but reach back to the past to gather knowledge and wisdom that will help us live better lives. And that's what you're going to be doing this coming Saturday. So look, man, let me just extend an invitation on behalf of Paul Coates and Black Classic Press, which is sponsoring the program, which is going to be held this coming Saturday at 2 p.m. at the Thurgood Marshall Center, located at 1816 12th Street Northwest in Washington, D.C., where you'll be speaking. Paul and I are going to have a conversation with you. We're going to give you time to do an in-depth presentation of ancient future and what is headed our way. And then whatever you want to share with the audience, Wayne, to help prepare those who have come with an open heart and an open mind to receive transformative information. We're going to let you do your thing, man. Because we're on PFW, we can't mention the price, but there is a fee, a modest fee. You can pay at the door. So I encourage everyone to come. I invite everyone who knew Wayne Chandler when he was living in Tacoma Park, when he was producing those beautiful calendars every year, you and Gaynell to come and just take a trip down memory lane as we prepare ourselves for the future that's headed our way. So Wayne, brother, look, thank you so much for being my guest on this 5th episode of the Browder File. And drive carefully on your way to Washington. And we look forward to seeing you, man.
I look forward to being there, man. I can't wait.
All right. All right. Thank you, man. So this is Wayne Chandler, And on Saturday's program, we'll have an opportunity to talk a little bit more about the work he did, the exciting work that he did with Ivan Van Sertima, his numerous articles with the Journal of African Civilization, the work he did with Runoko Rashidi, and what all of this means to us. Those who know me know that I talk about history, I talk about the past, but I understand very clearly that the past means nothing if it can't make your life better today. And an important part of making your life better is understanding that everything we do is rooted in this force, this power that folk refer to as love. I end every show with Maurice White, Earth, Wind, and Fire, singing the song that is all about love. And he tells us that we have to find the beauty within us and amplify that beauty everywhere we go. That's something that we have the power to do. And it's the knowledge of who we are that allows us to begin to seek out that power. And by listening to folk like Wayne Chandler, who's done the work, man, who's done the traveling, he's got the experiences. So he's coming to share this information with us. And we can't take this information for granted because so many of our scholars, our teachers, are leaving us. Some leave because of illness, others leave us unexpectedly. And when they're gone, they're gone. They're missed. And oftentimes we say, oh, I should have spent more time with this person, or I should have connected with this person and done this for that person. The time to do that is now. And if we understand who we are and why we are here, and more importantly, if we understand that we are an extension of those ancestors who've lived long before us, who express themselves through us in our thoughts and our speech, then we'll be better prepared to deal with the future. So this is Tony Browder, thanking you for tuning in to the Browder File. Coming up next is Margaret Kimberly with the Black Agenda Report, and I will see you all next week with my special guest, Paula Bina, and we'll continue to impart information that will prepare us for the winter solstice and what is to come in 2025. So thank you so much. And as always, love yourself. And if there ain't no beauty, you got to make some beauty.
Have mercy. Listen to